"Murderer! I saw it! He ran away!" The shrill cry echoed through the courtroom, not from the mouth of a human witness, but from a green and blue parrot confined in its cage. The judge's gavel, poised to seal young Mrs. Ana Lucia's fate, froze in mid-air. Everyone turned to the bird, petrified, feeling a chilling shiver run down their spines. What was that creature saying? And how would its words, repeated in the exact voice of the deceased, forever change the course of justice and the life of an innocent woman? The silence that followed Lauro's cry was more deafening than any noise. Judge Helena, a woman with a serious demeanor and impeccably styled grey hair, slowly lowered her gavel, her wide blue eyes fixed on the cage. A murmur began to spread through the room, like a creeping fire, but it was quickly stifled by the magistrate's stern gaze. Ana Lucia, a silver-haired woman with tear-filled eyes, who until then seemed to have accepted her destiny with painful resignation, raised her head. A spark of hope, or perhaps deep disbelief, flickered in her weary gaze. She sat huddled, her trembling hands in her lap, a picture of fragility and despair. Each day of the trial had drained her vitality, transforming her from a vibrant woman into a shadow. The weight of the unjust accusation was overwhelming, and the idea of life imprisonment, far from everything she loved, had stolen her peace. But now, Lauro's voice. It was the voice of her late husband, Pedro, so clear and vivid that it seemed as if he himself were there, in the courtroom. The prosecutor, Dr. Fonseca, young and ambitious, who had built her case with calculating coldness, frowned. Her lips, previously curved in a smile of anticipation for the imminent victory, now formed a tense line. She exchanged a confused glance with her support team, unsure how to react to the bizarre interruption. Ana Lucia's defense attorney, Dr. Almeida, older and more experienced, who had fought bravely but with little hope, leaned forward, a mix of astonishment and curiosity appearing on his face. "Order in the court!" Judge Helena's voice cut through the air, firmer this time. She adjusted her glasses on the bridge of her nose, trying to process what had just happened. What was that? Can someone explain the presence of this animal? And what it just uttered? Her voice, though authoritative, carried a tone of perplexity that did not go unnoticed. It was Dr. Almeida who stood up, adjusting his robe. "Your Honor, this is Lauro, Mrs. Ana Lucia's pet parrot. He was brought in as a piece of evidence by the prosecution itself, claiming he might have witnessed discussions between the couple, although they have presented nothing concrete until now." He gestured towards the cage, where Lauro seemed to observe everyone with his small, intelligent eyes. The judge sighed, running a hand across her forehead. "And what did he say, Doctor?" "Murderer! I saw it. He ran away." In the voice of the deceased. That is unusual, to say the least. She looked at the jury, who were as stunned as the rest of the room. Some jurors exchanged skeptical glances, others seemed genuinely intrigued. Ana Lucia felt a warmth in her chest. Lauro, her faithful companion, always chattering, but never before with such clarity. He was more than a pet. He was part of her family, a living link to Pedro. The idea that he could have retained her husband's words, repeating them now at the most crucial moment, defied logic. But to her, it sounded like a miracle. A solitary tear traced a path down her wrinkled face, but this time it was not of despair, but of a faint, almost imperceptible spark of hope. Her world had collapsed, but perhaps, just perhaps, Lauro could be the small sliver of light. The small sliver of light Ana Lucia glimpsed, transformed into an intense, almost painful focus of attention. She felt the eyes of everyone in the room, the judge, the prosecutor, the jury, even her own attorney, converge on Lauro and by extension on her. Uncertainty hung in the air, dense and palpable, as silence once again dominated, laden with expectation. Was this a delusion, a trick, or the beginning of an unimaginable truth? Dr. Fonseca, the prosecutor, regained her composure first, though with visible effort. "Your Honor, with all due respect, we cannot allow an animal, a parrot, however peculiar, to interrupt such a serious judicial process. This is a circus. It's inadmissible." Her voice, previously controlled, now carried a tone of irritation and desperation. She gestured with her hands, visibly shaken by the turn of events. Dr. Almeida, however, saw an opportunity. He stood up with renewed firmness, his eyes fixed on the judge. "Your Honor, what the parrot uttered is the unmistakable voice of the deceased Pedro. If he repeated the last words, this could be the most crucial evidence this court has ever seen. I ask that we consider the possibility of Luro being a witness, however unusual it may seem." There was an urgency in his voice, a renewed belief that Ana Lucia hadn't seen in her attorney for weeks. Judge Helena closed her eyes for an instant, massaging her temples. The situation was unprecedented. Her career, built on years of jurisprudence and logic, was being challenged by a parrot. She opened her eyes, her expression a mix of skepticism and an almost scientific curiosity. "Dr. Almeida, I understand your argument. However, an animal cannot give testimony. But what he said is, at the very least, disturbing. Let's maintain order." "Luro." She hesitated, looking at the cage. "Luro, repeat what you said, if you are able." As if understanding the order, Luro tilted his head, his small, bright eyes fixed on the judge. A tense silence filled the room. Then, with the same startling clarity of Pedro's voice, the parrot repeated, this time with more detail, the words that would change everything. "Ricardo, you traitor! I won't give you a single cent. This won't end like this." A shiver ran through the room. The name Ricardo echoed, a stranger in the midst of a trial that seemed so clearly defined. Ana Lucia gasped, bringing her hands to her mouth. Ricardo. Who was Ricardo? Shock and confusion mingled in her chest. But the voice, the voice was undeniably Pedro's. It was as if her husband were there, revealing the truth from beyond the grave through his faithful companion. A new wave of tears, this time of astonishment and an almost insane hope, traced a path down her face. Prosecutor Fonseca paled, her mouth agape in disbelief. The jury, previously divided between skepticism and intrigue, now seemed unanimous in their perplexity. Some jurors leaned forward, others exchanged alarmed glances. The carefully constructed narrative by the prosecution, which painted Ana Lucia as the sole culprit, began to crumble under the weight of a parrot's words. Judge Helena brought down her gavel forcefully, her voice now charged with an authority that tried to mask her own stupefaction. "Order! Order in the court! Let what has been uttered be recorded. Dr. Almeida, who is Ricardo? And why would the deceased Pedro be arguing with him about money and betrayal?" Her blue eyes, previously clouded with perplexity, now shone with the flame of a newly awakened investigation. Ana Lucia's trial, which seemed sealed, had just taken a completely unexpected turn, driven by the most improbable of witnesses. Judge Helena's question hung in the air, cutting through the tension. "Dr. Almeida, who is Ricardo? Why was Pedro arguing with him about money and betrayal?" Her blue eyes shone with the flame of investigation. Ana Lucia's trial, which seemed sealed, had taken an unexpected turn, driven by the most improbable of witnesses. Dr. Almeida took a moment to compose himself. He had no idea who Ricardo was, and Ana Lucia had never mentioned him. She looked at him with wide eyes, confirming that the name was strange. The puzzle had gained a piece, but it had also become more complex. "Your Honor, Ricardo is new to the defense," Dr. Almeida declared, his voice firm. Ana Lucia is unaware of any Ricardo with such intimacy with her husband. This suggests that Pedro had hidden aspects in his life, and, more importantly, the existence of a third party involved, with a clear motive for the crime. He requested a thorough investigation into Ricardo's identity and involvement. The prosecutor, Dr. Fonseca, regained her voice with scorn. "Your Honor, this is absurd. A Parrot cannot reopen an investigation or discredit evidence. This is a desperate tactic by the defense. There is no evidence of Ricardo beyond the chatter of a bird." She pointed at Lauro, oblivious to the commotion. "This is a farce." Ana Lucia felt a chill down her spine. Hope was fragile, and the prosecutor's words threatened it. But Pedro's voice was real. She closed her eyes, clinging to that certainty. Lauro was no imposter. He was the voice of her lost love, the bridge to the truth. Judge Helena, in deep reflection, listened attentively. The situation was unprecedented. To dismiss the Parrot's words would be to ignore a dramatic clue. To accept them as evidence required caution. She looked at Lauro, who stared back with almost human intelligence. "Dr. Fonseca, the court understands your concern," the judge began, "but Lauro's words in the voice of the deceased and with a specific name cannot be ignored. Justice demands that all avenues be explored, especially when a life is at stake. A miscarriage of justice is a burden this court cannot bear lightly." She brought down her gavel with authority. "Given the gravity of the new information, this court temporarily suspends the trial. The defense will have 48 hours to present information leading to the identification of Ricardo and his connection to Pedro. The prosecution must assist in the investigation, verifying records. The truth, however hidden, has the right to come to light." Ana Lucia felt relief and dread. The trial was suspended, a small victory, but finding an unknown Ricardo seemed like an insurmountable mountain. She looked at Lauro, her little guardian of truth, who had done his part. Ana Lucia's fate depended on a race against time to unravel a mystery she didn't even know existed. The gavel's final rap reverberated, but the sound did not bring the feared verdict, but rather a postponement, a pause. Ana Lucia felt a mix of relief and panic. The trial was suspended, yes, but the task of finding an unknown Ricardo in just 48 hours seemed like an insurmountable mountain. She looked at Dr. Almeida, who approached with an expression of contained urgency. "Ana Lucia, we need to act quickly," he said, his voice low and firm as the courtroom slowly began to empty, leaving behind a trail of murmurs and curious glances. "The judge has given us a chance, but it's a chance with a tight deadline. Do you have any idea who this Ricardo might be? A friend of Pedro's, a work colleague, someone he mentioned?" Ana Lucia shook her head, the tears that were once of despair, now a new and strange mixture of hope and confusion. "No, doctor. Pedro never mentioned a Ricardo with whom he had money problems or betrayal. Our friends have been the same for years, and he was always very transparent about his dealings. Or so I thought." The last sentence came out almost as a whisper, laden with an old pain and a new distrust. The idea that Pedro could have had such deep secrets to the point of costing him his life was an even greater blow. Dr. Almeida nodded thoughtfully. "I understand, but we cannot give up. The prosecution will have to help us, as the judge ordered. We need access to Pedro's financial records, his work contacts, everything that can give us a clue." He looked at Lauro's cage, which was being carefully carried away by a court officer, under the watchful eye of an attentive Ana Lucia. "Lauro was our salvation. Now he is our only clue." As they left the courthouse, Ana Lucia felt the weight of Dr. Fonseca's gaze, who watched them with a mix of anger and frustration. The prosecutor did not seem willing to cooperate, and that would make the search even more difficult. But the image of Lauro repeating Pedro's words gave Ana Lucia a strength she didn't know she possessed. Her little parrot, her companion of so many years, had become a beacon in the darkness. In Dr. Almeida's office, the atmosphere was one of tension and frenzy. He and his team delved into the few documents they had of Pedro, while Ana Lucia tried to scour her memories, searching for any detail, any name that might fit. She felt exhausted, but the adrenaline kept her alert. Every minute was precious. Pedro had a partner in an old venture, but they parted amicably years ago, Ana Lucia commented, leafing through a photo album. I don't remember his name, but I know it wasn't Ricardo. She sighed, frustration beginning to erode her newfound hope. What if Ricardo is a nickname or someone Pedro met recently without telling me? Doctor, Almeida stopped typing on the computer, turning to her. Anything is possible, Ana Lucia. We need to think outside the box. Did Pedro have any hobbies, any place he frequented alone? Any secret, however small, that he kept from you, perhaps not to worry you? The question hit her like a lightning bolt. Pedro, her husband for 40 years, had secrets. The idea was painful. But Lauro's voice didn't lie. There was a Ricardo, there was betrayal, and there was money. Ana Lucia closed her eyes, trying to reconnect with Pedro's memory, not just as the husband she loved, but as a man who might have had a parallel life, unknown to her. The search for Ricardo was not just a race against time. It was a painful journey to unravel the layers of a man she thought she knew so well. The clock was ticking, and the truth seemed to be hidden in a labyrinth of memories and secrets. Ana Lucia opened her eyes. The image of Pedro, the man she loved and now barely recognized, dancing in her mind. 40 years of marriage, and the possibility of such deep secrets hurt her more than the accusation itself. It was as if the foundation of her life was crumbling again, but this time from within, in her own heart. The pain was sharp, a tight knot in her chest, but the need for justice for Pedro and for herself was greater, propelling her forward. She needed to find Ricardo, not only to free herself from the shadow of life imprisonment, but to understand who Pedro had truly been, to make sense of her loss. Dr. Almeida, noticing the anguish on her face, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, offering silent support. Ana Lucia, I know it's difficult. It's natural to feel this way, but we need every fragment of memory, however painful. Think of something Pedro did alone, something he didn't share, an investment he kept secret, an old friendship that suddenly resurfaced. He encouraged her with a look of understanding. Ana Lucia closed her eyes again, forcing herself to scour the most remote corners of her mind, where Pedro's memories were stored. Pedro was a man of routines, a dedicated husband, a loving father to his grown children. But there was something. Once a few years ago, he had become excessively secretive about a project he called future investment. He said it was a surprise for their retirement, something that would make her very happy, a dream for their golden years. She never questioned it, fully trusting his word, the transparency that had always guided their relationship. Could that be the key? He had a secret project, she said, her voice choked by the revelation and the pain of possible betrayal of trust. He said it was for our retirement, a big investment. He never gave me details, just that it required total discretion not to spoil the surprise and to avoid the envy of others. A pang of regret hit her for not having been more curious, for having trusted so blindly. Dr. Almeida nodded, his eyes shining with a new and palpable hope. This is a start, Ana Lucia. A secret investment can involve partners, and partners can become enemies, especially when money and betrayal are involved, as Lauro indicated. We need to investigate this thoroughly. Where did he keep important documents? Did he have an office outside the house or a safe? Dr. Almeida's team was already in action. making frantic calls, consulting public databases and commercial registries, but the lack of a surname or any other concrete clue made the search a shot in the dark, an endless labyrinth. Dr. Fonseca, as expected, was not cooperating. Her office had sent a formal note claiming lack of resources for investigations based on non-human evidence. A clear demonstration of her resistance, disdain, and perhaps even fear that her case would disintegrate. He had a small safe built into the wall of his office behind a painting he himself had done. Ana Lucia replied, her voice firmer now, determination overcoming hesitation. I know the combination. I never needed to open it, but he gave it to me in case of emergency, saying it was for our safety. The idea of invading Pedro's privacy, even after his death, caused her deep discomfort, a sense of desecration, but the urgency of the situation and the need to prove her innocence outweighed any personal scruples. "Excellent!" exclaimed Dr. Almeida, picking up the phone with alacrity. "We need a court order to access that safe immediately. If there are documents about this investment or about Ricardo, we will be closer to the truth, closer to unraveling this mystery that plagues your life." As Dr. Almeida spoke with Judge Helena, explaining the new and promising lead, Ana Lucia thought of Luro. He was now in a safe place, under the care of a trusted friend, awaiting the outcome of everything. The parrot, with its peculiar intelligence and miraculous voice, had been the catalyst for everything. He had not only exonerated her from the most terrible accusation, but had also forced her to confront the hidden truths of her own husband, truths she might never have discovered otherwise. It was a painful journey, yes, but necessary for her freedom and for Pedro's soul to find peace. With each step, Ana Lucia felt she was honoring Pedro's memory in a strange way, unraveling the web of secrets that had led to his death and that bound her to injustice. Overcoming was not just about the courtroom, but about rebuilding her own perception of life and love, and finding the strength to move forward. Time was short, but the flame of hope, ignited by a parrot, guided her through the darkness, promising a new dawn. The judicial authorization arrived in record time, a reflection of the urgency that Judge Helena had imposed. Dr. Almeida, with the permission in hand, did not lose a second. Accompanied by a court officer, they went to Ana Lucia's house, the place that had been her home for decades and now seemed like a museum of painful memories. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and an almost palpable tension. Ana Lucia felt her heart pounding in her chest, a mix of apprehension and a strange excitement. With each step towards Pedro's office, the idea of unraveling the secrets of the man she loved became more real and more frightening. As they entered the office, the familiar smell of Pedro's books and pipe tobacco enveloped her, bringing a wave of nostalgia and sadness. The painting he himself had done, a serene landscape with a stream, seemed ironically calm before the brewing storm. With trembling hands, Ana Lucia reached for the painting, removing it from the wall. There was the safe, discreet, and silent, holding truths that could free her or shatter her even further. She typed the combination, a significant date for them, and the metal door creaked softly as it opened, revealing a dark and mysterious interior. Inside, there was a stack of documents, some sealed envelopes, and a small wooden box. Dr. Almeida, with his professional demeanor, carefully picked up the papers. His eyes scanning the lines quickly, Ana Lucia beside him felt the air leave her lungs, each heartbeat echoing in the quiet room. The first envelope contained bank statements from an account she didn't know, with substantial and irregular financial transactions. The second, a partnership agreement, and there was the name Ricardo Mendez. But it wasn't just a common partnership agreement. It was an agreement for a mining venture in a remote area, a type of business Pedro had always criticized for its environmental impacts and its risky nature. Ricardo Mendes's signature was there, next to Pedro's. The betrayal was not just financial, it was of principles, of everything Pedro claimed to defend. Ana Lucia felt a shiver. Pedro was involved in something that went against his own values, a secret he had masterfully hidden. Dr. Almeida frowned, reading a specific clause about profit sharing and a severe penalty in case of withdrawal or breach of contract. Ana Lucia, this Ricardo Mendes, he's not just a partner. It seems Pedro was trying to extricate himself from this business and Ricardo was not happy about it. He pointed to a handwritten note by Pedro in the margin of the contract. Ricardo is threatening me. I can't let this destroy everything. The small wooden box, which Ana Lucia had noticed, was open. Inside, there was an old photograph. In it, a young Pedro smiled next to a sturdy man with harsh features, whom Ana Lucia immediately recognized with a chilling shock. It was Pedro's brother, Marcos, with whom he hadn't spoken for over 20 years due to a family feud over an inheritance. And on the back of the photo, in Pedro's handwriting, was written, "Ricardo and I, before everything changed." Ana Lucia gasped, bringing her hands to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror and disbelief. Ricardo was not a stranger. Ricardo was Marcos, Pedro's brother, her brother-in-law. The man she knew, but who had become a distant shadow. The betrayal was familial, the envy, ancient. The truth was crueler and more personal than she could ever have imagined. The turning point had arrived, and with it, a new and painful understanding of the complexity of Pedro's life, and the web of secrets now unfolding before her eyes. Hope mingled with a bitter sense of disappointment, but justice was one step closer. Ana Lucia felt the ground disappear beneath her. Marcos. The name echoed, a thunderous revelation. Her brother-in-law, Pedro's brother, they hadn't spoken for decades. The image of Marcos's face, hardened by bitterness, emerged. The inheritance dispute, the family separation, seemed like a dark premonition. Ricardo's betrayal was not just a financial blow. It was a deep family wound, bleeding and staining Pedro's memory. Dr. Almeida, noticing Ana Lucia's shock, held her hand, his voice soft and urgent. "Ana Lucia, breathe. I know it's devastating, but this is the clue we needed. Ricardo Mendes is Marcos, Pedro's brother. This changes everything." He helped her sit, his eyes fixed on the documents and the photo. The envy, the inheritance dispute, the secret investment. Everything fits. Pedro was trying to distance himself from the business with his brother, and Marcos didn't accept it. We need to find him. Ana Lucia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Marcos, he was always impulsive, doctor, and resentful. Pedro tried to reconcile, but Marcos never wanted to. He held a lot of resentment. The pain of the revelation was excruciating. It wasn't enough to lose Pedro. Now, her husband's image was stained by secrets and family betrayal. Pedro's death had opened a Pandora's box, revealing bitter truths. "This gives us a strong motive and a suspect with a complex history," Dr. Almeida stated, tracing the steps. "We need to present this to Judge Helena immediately. The prosecution will not ignore Lauro's words. With a name and history, the investigation will have to be reopened." He picked up the phone, his expression determined. "I'm going to call the judge and request an emergency hearing. We need a search warrant for Marcos and properties linked to the venture." As Dr. Almeida spoke, Ana Lucia tried to process the avalanche of information. Overcoming previously an external battle against the judicial system became an internal struggle against disappointment and pain. Her Pedro, had hidden so much, and Marcos, her brother-in-law, could be responsible for everything. The human connection, which she valued so much, had been brutally severed. Judge Helena agreed to a quick hearing scheduled for the following morning. The news of Ricardo Mendes's identity would shake the foundations of the court. Dr. Almeida explained to Ana Lucia that Prosecutor Fonseca would try to disqualify the new evidence, but the consistency of the clues, the parrot, the safe, the documents and the photo, was irrefutable. The truth, Ana Lucia, is finding its way. Luro was the bravest messenger. Ana Lucia felt a thread of hope strengthen amidst the confusion. Luro, her small and loyal friend, had been the voice of truth, a bridge between past and present, injustice and justice. She needed to be as brave as him, to face the truth, however painful, to honor Pedro and reclaim her life. The journey was long, but now it had a name, a face, and a motive. The darkness receded, revealing a path to freedom. The following morning brought with it a palpable tension. Ana Lucia, though exhausted from a sleepless night, felt a new strength. The path to freedom, now with a name and a face, was painful, but real. In Dr. Almeida's office, the last details were reviewed: the mining contract, the bank statements, the old photograph of Pedro and Marcos, with the inscription, "Ricardo and I." Each piece confirmed the web of secrets and betrayal. Dr. Almeida assured Ana Lucia that the truth would prevail. In the courtroom, the room was packed. Journalists and onlookers awaited, the expectation in the air suffocating. Ana Lucia sat down, her heart pounding, with an unexpected serenity. It was no longer just her freedom at stake, but Pedro's honor and the search for truth, however bitter. Judge Helena entered, her serious expression reflecting the magnitude of the moment. "Dr. Almeida, the court is ready to hear the new evidence." Dr. Almeida stood up, his voice clear and resonant. "Your Honor, the defense accessed a personal safe belonging to the deceased Pedro Lacerda. Inside, we found irrefutable evidence that not only exonerates Ana Lucia, but points to the true culprit." He paused. "We found a partnership agreement for a mining venture, a business Pedro disapproved of, involving a partner named Ricardo Mendez." Dr. Fonseca, who had maintained disdain, paled. "Your Honor, this Ricardo Mendez is, in fact, Marcos Lacerda, the deceased's brother, with whom Pedro had a long and bitter history of family feuds. A photograph found in the safe, in Pedro's own handwriting, confirms the identity. Ricardo and I, before everything changed." Dr. Almeida presented the documents and the photo as evidence to Judge Helena. She examined each item meticulously, the truth unfolding. Dr. Fonseca, recovering from the shock, tried to intervene. "Your Honor, this is still speculation. A photo and a contract do not prove a murder. This is a desperate attempt to divert focus." Her voice lacked the same conviction. Judge Helena interrupted her. "Dr. Fonseca, the evidence is substantial. The identification of Ricardo as Marcos Lacerda, with a history of conflicts and involvement in a secret business, is too solid a lead. Added to this are the incredibly precise words of the parrot." The judge brought down her gavel, her voice grave and decisive. "Given the new and compelling evidence, this court orders the definitive suspension of this trial against Ana Lucia Lacerda. The prosecution has the obligation to immediately reopen the investigation, focusing on Marcos Lacerda, the now identified Ricardo Mendez. A search and arrest warrant will be issued for him and for any properties linked to the venture. Justice demands that the truth be fully revealed." Ana Lucia felt a mix of overwhelming relief and profound pain. Freedom was within reach, a fresh breeze after the storm, but the cost was disillusionment with the man she had loved and the revelation of family cruelty. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude for Luro, her courageous messenger of truth, and for Dr. Almeida. Overcoming was a tortuous path, but she was finally treading it, with the promise of a new beginning. Justice, after all, had found its way. Judge Helena's voice echoed, but Ana Lucia barely heard it. The world seemed to have stopped, suspended between overwhelming relief and the searing pain of truth. The suspension of the trial was freedom, yes, but at a cost she couldn't yet measure. Marcos, her brother-in-law, Pedro's brother. The family betrayal was a slow poison, corroding everything she thought she knew about her life, about her marriage, about the man she had loved for 40 years. She felt Dr. Almeida's hand on her shoulder, a gentle squeeze that brought her back to reality. He smiled, a contained smile, but full of righteous satisfaction. Ana Lucia tried to return it, but her lips trembled. The tears, which were once of fear, were now a complex mix of gratitude, sadness, and profound exhaustion. Across the room, Dr. Fonseca was livid. Her eyes, once full of conviction, now burned with contained fury, a bitter defeat. She exchanged glances with her team, who seemed as shocked as she was. The prosecutor, accustomed to victories, had been unmasked by a parrot and family secrets. Her arrogant demeanor had crumbled. As they left the courthouse, the avalanche of journalists and onlookers swallowed them. Flashes exploded, voices shouted questions. Dr. Almeida, with a protective firmness, cleared a path for Ana Lucia, who shrank slightly, wishing only for a quiet corner to process everything. She saw the glances, some curious, others pitying, but many now of a new understanding. The narrative of the cold and calculating widow had been shattered. In the car, on the way to Dr. Almeida's office, the silence was heavy. Ana Lucia looked out the window, the urban landscape passing by in a blur. "Doctor," she began, her voice hoarse, I don't know what to feel. Relief, yes, but also such great pain. Pedro, he hid so much from me. And Marcos, how could he?" The question hung in the air, without an easy answer. Dr. Almeida sighed, turning to her with a compassionate gaze. "Ana Lucia, it's natural to feel this way. The truth sometimes is crueler than lies. But it is the truth, and it is the only thing that can truly set you free. Pedro may have made mistakes, kept secrets, but he was also a victim. And you, Ana Lucia, were wronged. Now justice is beginning to be served for both of you." He paused. "The investigation will now focus on Marcos. The police will look for him. Interrogate people connected to the mining venture. It will be a process, but the direction is clear." Ana Lucia closed her eyes, trying to absorb the words. The image of Luro, repeating Pedro's phrases, appeared in her mind. Her little friend, the improbable messenger, had been the beacon in her darkness. "I need to see Luro," she said, a pang of affection in her voice. "He was so brave. He saved us." "Of course," Dr. Almeida agreed, a small smile appearing on his lips. "He is safe and well cared for. But now, Ana Lucia, you need to rest. Process all of this. Overcoming is not just about the courtroom. It's about healing the wounds this truth has opened. It's about rebuilding your life, your peace." She nodded, feeling the weight of the past weeks begin to lift. The journey to freedom did not end there in the courtroom. It was just the beginning of a new and more intimate journey of healing and self-discovery. The fight for justice for Pedro would continue, but now she was no longer alone under the weight of the accusation. There was a path, however tortuous, and hope ignited by the voice of a parrot shone brighter than ever. The human connection, though shaken by betrayal, was strengthened by Luro's loyalty and Dr. Almeida's dedication. The promise of a new beginning, though laden with scars, was a balm for Ana Lucia's exhausted soul. The day after the trial's suspension, the outside world seemed to have regained its colors, but within her, the landscape was still of gray and hazy tones. Dr. Almeida had insisted she rest. But rest was a luxury her troubled mind could not afford. The image of Pedro, the husband she thought she knew so well, mingled with the shadow of secrets and the figure of his brother, Marcos, the Ricardo who had plunged her into a nightmare. Her first and most urgent need was to see Luro. Her little green-feathered hero, Luro, was with Mrs. Clara, a long-time friend. Mrs. Clara's house, with its garden, was a haven of peace. Upon entering, Ana Lucia heard Luro's familiar chirping. He was in his cage, on the porch. Seeing her, Luro tilted his head, his intelligent eyes fixed on hers, and let out an "Ana Lucia, miss you," that warmed her heart. She approached, extending her hand to stroke his soft feathers. Tears came, of pure relief and overwhelming gratitude. Luro was proof that truth, however improbable, always finds a way. Mrs. Clara, with white hair and a welcoming smile, hugged Ana Lucia warmly. "My dear, what torment you've been through. But justice is coming, isn't it?" Luro was a miracle. Ana Lucia merely nodded, unable to speak, feeling the warmth of the embrace. Human connection, in its simplest moments, was a safe harbor. While Ana Lucia reconnected with Luro, Dr. Almeida wasted no time. Judge Helena had acted with alacrity. The search and arrest warrant for Marcos Lacerda was in the hands of the police. The properties of the mining venture would be searched. Prosecutor Fonseca, despite the defeat, followed the court's orders. The investigation now turned to Marcos. The press, previously relentless, now sought information about Pedro's brother and the web of betrayal. Ana Lucia talked with Mrs. Clara, venting her confusion of feelings. How could Pedro hide something so big, Clara? A business that went against everything he preached, and with Marcos, after so many years of resentment. Her voice was a whisper. Mrs. Clara, with the wisdom of years, listened, offering tea and a friendly shoulder. People are complex, Ana Lucia, and secrets sometimes are more to protect us than to deceive us. Perhaps Pedro was trying to resolve this alone, not to worry you. This perspective, though it didn't diminish the pain of betrayal, offered a small comfort. Pedro, the man she loved, had been a victim of his past and his brother's ambitions. Overcoming, she realized, was not just about being exonerated, but about forgiving Pedro for his secrets and perhaps one day Marcos. The journey of healing was long, but Luro, Dr. Almeida's dedication and Mrs. Clara's affection were pillars that supported her. Each day, a thread of hope was woven, promising that even from the ruins, life could blossom stronger and truer. Justice for Pedro was on its way, and with it, Ana Lucia's peace. Justice for Pedro was on its way, and Ana's peace. In the days following the trial's suspension, the machinery of justice moved with alacrity. Dr. Almeida was tireless. His office became an operations center, with constant phone calls to Judge Helena and her team. The police, under new direction, scoured for clues linked to Marcos Lacerda and the mining venture. Dr. Fonseca, though reluctant, admitted the strength of the new evidence, and her team now sought Pedro's brother, the man behind Ricardo Mendez. Ana Lucia tried to find her rhythm. She spent mornings with Luro at Mrs. Clara's house, seeking solace in the Parrot and her friend's wisdom. Luro, oblivious to human complexity, repeated phrases, his existence a reminder of the truth. Ana Lucia stroked his feathers, feeling renewed hope, though laden with the pain of disillusionment. "Pedro, why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, tears streaming. Mrs. Clara, beside her, held her hand, offering an understanding silence. It was a balm. News arrived. The police found records of Marcos Lacerda as Ricardo in a remote hotel near the mining operation. Witnesses emerged, describing a reclusive, paranoid and aggressive Marcos. The net was closing in. Dr. Almeida called Ana Lucia, informing her, his voice conveying confidence. "We are very close, Ana Lucia. He has nowhere to go. The truth will catch up to him." The tension mounted. The press, eager for a twist, camped out, speculating about Marcos's escape and the family plot. Ana Lucia felt her heart clench. a mix of anxiety for the capture and sorrow for her brother-in-law's fate. The family, once a safe harbor, had become a minefield of secrets and betrayals, unraveled by a parrot. It was on a rainy afternoon, the grey sky mirroring her melancholy, that Dr. Almeida's phone rang. The voice on the other end was urgent and exultant. The police had located Marcos Lacerda. He was hidden in an isolated cabin in the remote reaches of the mining property, trying to destroy evidence. The search and seizure team arrived in time, surprising him. There was no violent confrontation, just the surrender of a man cornered by greed and the weight of truth. Marcos, his face marked by defeat, offered no resistance. Dr. Almeida, with the news, immediately called Ana Lucia. She was at home, lost in thought. Hearing his voice, she felt a chill down her spine. "Ana Lucia," he said gravely, "they got him. Marcos Lacerda is in custody." Silence was her answer. Ana Lucia let the phone drop, her hands trembling. A wave of emotions swept over her, profound relief, but also bitter sadness. Justice was being served at an immense cost of broken ties. The climax had arrived, not with violence, but with the silent echo of a revealed truth, crying out for healing. She looked at Pedro's photo, feeling that he could finally rest. Overcoming was a continuous process, one step, a new dawn. Ana Lucia felt the ground beneath her feet waver. The phone, now silent, lay on the carpet, an inert object that had just uttered a truth that, though expected, hit her with the force of a tidal wave. Marcos, captured. The news was a relief. Yes, a gigantic weight lifted from her shoulders, but it came laden with a sadness so profound that it seemed to suffocate her. The image of her brother-in-law, once a distant face in memory, now materialized as the pivot of all her pain, of the betrayal that had dismantled her marriage and Pedro's death. She sat on the sofa, her hands trembling, her gaze lost on Pedro's photo on the shelf. Silent tears streamed, no longer of despair, but of an exhaustion that seemed to come from her soul. It was the end of a battle, but the beginning of an even more intimate and complex journey of healing. Minutes later, Dr. Almeida called back, concerned by the abrupt silence. "Ana Lucia, are you all right?" Did the call drop? His voice, though grave, was gentle. "Yes, doctor. I just needed a moment. It's a lot." She tried to steady her voice. "What happens now?" Dr. Almeida explained, with his usual calm. The next steps. Marcos would be interrogated, the evidence collected from Pedro's safe, and the cabin would be crucial. The prosecution would now have to build a case against him. "Your innocence, Ana Lucia, will be formally recognized. The process against Marcos will be opened, and the truth about Pedro will come to light in its entirety." He paused. "It's a process, but justice is being served, for Pedro and for you." The lawyer's words were a balm. Justice for Pedro. It was all she wanted. Overcoming was not just about her freedom, but about clearing her husband's name, understanding his secrets, and somehow finding peace. The next day, Ana Lucia went to Dr. Almeida's office. He greeted her with a welcoming smile. "Judge Helena is already acting. Your formal exoneration will be issued soon, and the investigation into Marcos is progressing rapidly. The evidence is irrefutable." Ana Lucia merely nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. I need to forgive, Doctor, not Marcos, perhaps never, but Pedro for having hidden so much, and myself for not having seen." Dr. Almeida looked at her with compassion. "Forgiveness is an act of liberation, Ana Lucia. It's not forgetting, but accepting. Pedro, in the end, was a victim of his own web and his brother's ambition. He tried to protect you in his own way, and you, Ana Lucia, were the personification of resilience, of strength, Lauro was the messenger, but you were the warrior. The mention of Lauro brought a small smile to Ana Lucia's lips. I need to see him, thank him somehow. That afternoon, she went to pick up Lauro at Mrs. Clara's house. The reunion was emotional. Lauro, in his cage, chirped joyfully upon seeing her, repeating, Ana Lucia, miss you. And to her surprise, truth, justice. Ana Lucia embraced him, tears flowing freely. He was the link, the improbable voice that had unraveled the darkness. The human connection, so shaken by betrayal, was rebuilt on the loyalty of a parrot and the friendship of Mrs. Clara, who awaited her with tea and a tight hug. Days turned into weeks. Marcos Lacerda was formally charged. Prosecutor Fonseca, with a visibly more humble demeanor, now led the prosecution against him, based on the evidence that Lauro and Pedro's safe had revealed. The press, once eager for sensationalism, now narrated the story of the improbable truth, Ana Lucia's courage, and the hero Parrot. Ana Lucia gradually began to rebuild her life. The pain of disillusionment with Pedro was still there, but it was tempered by the understanding that he too had been a victim. She began to visit Pedro's grave more frequently, bringing flowers and talking to him, no longer with anger, but with a serene melancholy. Overcoming was a slow path, but she was no longer alone. Lauro, now back by her side, was a constant reminder that hope, however fragile, always finds a way. Justice, after all, had found its most unexpected messenger, and through him, truth and peace for Ana Lucia. She looked at the horizon, feeling the sun on her face. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she could breathe, that she could live again. She looked at the horizon, feeling the sun on her face. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she could breathe, that she could live again. Weeks stretched into months. Marcos Lacerda's trial was a painful but necessary process. Prosecutor Fonseca, with the help of irrefutable evidence and Lauro's testimony, whose recordings of Pedro's phrases were accepted as circumstantial evidence given their precision and context, built a solid case. Marcos was convicted of fraud and for being the mastermind of the crime, although the prosecution emphasized that the physical act was not committed by him, but by an accomplice who acted under his orders and who was also identified and arrested. Justice, though delayed, finally prevailed. Ana Lucia did not attend all sessions of Marcos's trial. Dr. Almeida advised her to distance herself, to focus on her own healing. He, however, kept her informed, ensuring that every step was taken with due diligence. With each phone call, the lawyer's voice brought a little more peace to Ana Lucia's soul. The truth is being honored, Ana Lucia, he would say, and she felt that Pedro, wherever he was, finally rested. Lauro, her faithful companion, became a symbol of hope. He was always nearby, chirping his random phrases, but which for Ana Lucia carried a deep meaning. Truth, justice, he repeated, and she smiled, stroking his green feathers. He was living proof that the most unexpected voice can unravel the greatest darkness. Ana Lucia began to reconnect with the world. She resumed painting, an old passion she had abandoned years ago. Her canvases, once filled with somber colors, now exploded in vibrant hues, reflecting the new light she found within herself. Mrs. Clara was a constant presence, a safe haven of wisdom and affection. Together, they spent afternoons in the garden talking about life, about losses, and about the resilience of the human spirit. The pain of Pedro's betrayal and Marcos's ambition still existed, but it no longer consumed her. She had learned to forgive, not for them, but for herself. To forgive Pedro for his secrets, understanding that he, in his own way, tried to protect her. To forgive herself for not having seen, for having trusted blindly. Forgiveness was a balm, freeing her from the shackles of the past. One day, while painting in the garden, with Lauro perched on her shoulder, she felt a gentle breeze. She looked at the blue sky, a serene smile on her lips. Life, she realized, was not about avoiding storms, but about learning to dance in the rain. She had faced the most brutal of storms and emerged not unscathed but stronger, wiser. Ana Lucia's story of the parrot that unraveled the truth spread, inspiring many. She became a living testament that even in the darkest moments, hope can arise from where it's least expected, and that justice, however tortuous its paths, always finds a messenger to reveal the truth. In time, Ana Lucia found a new purpose. She began to volunteer at a support center for elderly women facing legal difficulties, sharing her story, offering solace, and showing that overcoming is possible. She knew her journey still had many chapters, and now she would write them with the pen of hope, resilience, and love. Guided by the unforgettable voice of her little Lauro, the green-feathered hero who taught her that truth, however improbable its messenger, always finds a way to justice and peace. Ana Lucia, with a lighter heart and a soul at peace, embraced each new day as a blank page, ready to be filled with the colors of hope and compassion. She knew her journey still had many chapters, and now she wrote them with the pen of hope, resilience, and love, guided by the unforgettable voice of her little Lauro, the green-feathered hero who had taught her that truth, however improbable its messenger, always finds a way to justice and peace. Her volunteering at the support center for elderly women became the new pillar of her existence, a purpose that filled her in a way she had never imagined. In the small hall of the center, where the smell of fresh coffee mingled with that of freshly cut flowers, Ana Lucia sat with Mrs. Elsa, a tear-filled woman who was facing the bureaucracy of a complicated inheritance. Ana Lucia held Mrs. Elsa's wrinkled hand, her own fingers conveying a calm that came from her own journey. "Don't lose heart, Mrs. Elsa," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Justice sometimes is slow, but it finds its way. I know this from my own experience." A small, sad smile appeared on Mrs. Elsa's lips, who nodded, her eyes fixed on Ana Lucia's determination. "You are an inspiration to all of us here. Your story, it gives us strength." Lauro, her inseparable companion, often accompanied her to the center, perched in a special cage hung near the window. His joyful chirps and unexpected phrases like "truth, justice" brought a touch of lightness and a constant reminder of the improbability of hope. The women at the center adored him, seeing in him a miraculous mascot, a symbol that the impossible can happen. Lauro's presence was a balm, a tangible link to the turning point that had changed Ana Lucia's life and now inspired others. Mrs. Clara, always attentive and affectionate, visited Ana Lucia regularly, bringing homemade cakes and comforting conversations. "You have blossomed, my dear," she observed, with a look of pride and a warm smile. "You've transformed your pain into light for others." Dr. Almeida also kept in touch, no longer as a lawyer but as a friend. His calls were brief, but full of mutual respect and silent admiration for Ana Lucia's resilience. "Your legacy is greater than any case I've ever won," he confessed in one of these conversations, his voice laden with sincerity. Ana Lucia, at the end of each day, returned to her house, now a home of peace. Pedro's photos were still there, but she looked at them with a new serenity. The anger had dissipated, replaced by a melancholic understanding of a complex man, a victim of his own choices and his brother's greed. Forgiveness, she realized, was not an event, but a continuous process, a daily choice to free herself from the weight of resentment. She felt free, not only from the accusation, but from the shackles of the past. Her garden, once neglected by the storm, now flourished under her care. Red and white roses exuded their fragrance, a reminder that beauty can emerge even after the greatest storms. As she watered the flowers, Luro on her shoulder repeated, "Ana Lucia, miss you." And she smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes and lit up her face. Life, with its scars and its new blossoms, was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. She had found her voice, not to shout accusations, but to whisper hope. Her journey, which seemed to have ended in the courtroom, was, in fact, a new beginning, a living testament that truth, justice, and love, even when brought by a parrot, are the strongest pillars for rebuilding a full and meaningful life. A soft melody that resonated in every gesture of kindness and every word of encouragement she offered to the world.